Hello, everyone. My name is Calvin Hendricks Parker for Gestalt IT. You can find me on Twitter at CalvinHP. You can also find my blog at sixfeetup.com/blog. I am joined today by Michael. Why don't you go ahead and give a quick introduction to yourself and let the audience know who you are?
Hey Calvin, thanks for having me. My name is Michael Franti, and I'm the VP of Product Marketing at Portworx by Pure Storage. Portworx is a company that helps customers get the most out of their data when their apps are running on Kubernetes, and so I'm sure we'll talk about all about that. I've been with Portworx for 4 years, and prior to that was at another company who was doing what we called at the time data management for Docker. So I've been around the industry for a long time and happy to share some of that experience with your listeners.
And that's awesome. So let's jump right in. Your group did a survey about Kubernetes adoption over the last couple of years. And I'm interested because from the survey, it said that 85% of folks are using Kubernetes to test or develop AI in applications. There's a lot of data involved there. And I'm kind of interested to hear how the work you're doing at Portworx is helping in this new version of the Portworx software to deal with all that data and containers.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we see, and this comes from listening to our customers that, when you're building modern applications, there's a new tool set and it involves containers and Kubernetes. What do I mean by a modern application? Modern apps are, they're very dynamic. They are composed of multiple microservices. Typically, there's never a good time for something like a maintenance notification to take them offline so that you can update your database or something like that. And they tend to reach a much higher scale than some of our traditional applications in the enterprise, say like our Exchange server, or even a mission critical application like our Oracle database. There's a different scale. So containers and Kubernetes are in this kind of orbit of modern application. And you say, okay, well, what types of modern applications are people running today? And increasingly, it's about how do we process this massive quantity of data that we are collecting in real time from, device endpoints like phones, from connected devices all over our house, to our cars, to the 5G data. And increasingly, in order to process that data, you're applying artificial intelligence or machine learning. And let's not get into the definition, otherwise we're going to use up our whole time here. But Kubernetes, it turns out, is a great way to run these AI and ML workloads because you can apply a lot of automation to it so that you can train your models, you can bring up a new model, you can crunch the data, you can take the result and you can bring that over into another system, and it can be all completely automated. And it's a self-service experience for that data scientist who ultimately is behind the model. And so it's a combination of kind of automation, scale, and self-service that makes Kubernetes a really great platform for these types of apps.
Right. But I mean, specifically on the Portworx side, it seems like the latest release has included a lot of great features to help process or manage or scale to that level.
Yeah. So we have customers that, just have massive data sets, and maybe that's sitting in a solution like a FlashBlade, which is a unified flash file and object system, because modern data tends to be unstructured. So you have all of this data. You want to be able to access it. You want to be able to spin up a TensorFlow model on Kubernetes and access it. So what Portworx does is we provide the Kubernetes control plane that allows you to run those workflows on top of your enterprise data store. And this release brings a much tighter integration between the customer's Pure FlashArray and FlashBlade, as well as Portworx.
Yeah. So one of the other areas that the survey uncovered was that there's been such a fast adoption of Kubernetes by the enterprise, but one of the areas of needed growth was around security. And does Portworx itself help the enterprise address the security concerns around Kubernetes?
Yeah, absolutely. So security, and my lawyers would like me to remind you that I can never tell you are secure. I can say that we contribute to your security, right? Security is a multi-headed beast. We could talk about no trust. We could talk about ransomware protection. We could talk about encryption, and all of that stuff is really important to security writ large. Where we help our customers is with their data security. So, Kubernetes platforms tend to be multi-tenant systems where we have lots of users that are accessing the same cluster in order to process their applications. And what we've heard from our customers is that rather than encrypting everything that's on a storage backend with a single key, which may be compromised, and we have these different tenants that don't want to encrypt their data with the same key, we want to provide container granular capabilities so that just this pod or just this group of pods can be encrypted with their own key, that's stored in my key management system, and where access is granted based on the role-based access control model that I'm using within my enterprise, whether that's something like Okta or something like LDAP or Active Directory. So we bring a data security lens that complements all the other security practices that our customers are employing.
Yeah, I love that, because there's nothing worse about security than how difficult the additional layers can possibly be, and being able to facilitate making that's much smoother for a
It's
developer.
got to be easy,
Yeah,
because
it's got to be
that's
easy,
the
right?
thing. You can't guilt people into being secure. I mean, look at how many of us use passwords that are completely insecure. But if you make it easy, and that's like Portworx, Kubernetes developers think in terms of YAML files. These are text files where I just specify what it is I want. And now with Portworx, I can specify encryption, true. Like it's really that simple. And it's when you make it easy for people that they actually implement it.
Yeah, no kidding. I love the fact that there's a developer centricness coming to a lot of these enterprise IT solutions now that are really making the developers happy, because they can now do the kinds of deployments they want. They can use containers, they can deploy on a Kubernetes, they can get orchestration, and the IT team, they understand the bit that's underneath a lot. It's because it's really geared toward them. And so the survey also pointed to increased IT happiness. So for those of you who are maybe living under a rock, but 2020 was maybe a rough year for the Earth as a whole, but some IT folks are pointing to increased IT happiness because of the pandemic. Has Portworx been helping to improve IT happiness, and what do you attribute that to over the last year?
Yeah, it's been a really tough year globally, and here's the thing. A lot of companies had to cut to the bone because it's a pandemic and we have to shift resources, and everybody kind of had to think about a planning cycle that was a lot rougher than they anticipated. So there were a lot of layoffs. Hours got cut for some people. Other people had to pick up that slack. And we were shifting towards an all digital way of running a business. So we basically had less staff, and yet the demands on that staff were greater than ever. You would think that would be a recipe for less happy employees, but as it turned out, Kubernetes was a way that we saw in the survey that people responded to those changes because it was both allowed them to apply automation, right, to do more with fewer people, and it could help their systems scale to greater levels than they had anticipated. One amazing story is one of our customers, Roblox, has shared that they scaled in 1 week in 2020 as much as they scaled in the previous 12 months, right? And that's only possible with technologies like containers and Portworx. So they were adopting Kubernetes. And so what that meant is that they were more productive, right? They could bring applications to market faster. And because they were leveraging automation, they had more downtime to, as they were at home, to spend more time with their family. So you're more productive. You're able to spend more time doing the things that you love outside of work. And then the kicker is that when we looked at kind of the how Kubernetes knowledge equates to salary, those with the most Kubernetes knowledge tended to be at the top of the salary scale. So I call it productive, happy, and rich. I think is the story of Kubernetes in the pandemic, because it is really one of those things where you can do more with less. You end up enjoying your job more because you can leverage automation for the things that are really mundane. And it's an area that's growing, so it's highly compensated.
And I really enjoyed in the survey, we also focused on the fact that the time for delivery of new applications was greatly accelerated, I believe, by the pandemic. I got to believe that the most software written all the software written in the world is probably written for internal applications, for internal users. They're never seen by the general public. They're not, web published on your front end website. And all those folks had to basically up their game as people were moving to work from home.
Yeah.
We needed to build new apps quickly to accommodate the fact that it wasn't like a help desk person who could just come to your desk now and fix those kinds of problems. So I'm just wondering, with that shift in mindset, it greatly sped up the release of new applications or the development of new applications. The IT teams were able to support and like make that happen. It sounds like they're also able to make that happen with like tools like Portworx. Portworx were able to allow them to do that in a cross cloud hybrid fashion as well. Because it sounds like the Portworx tool itself is not constrained to just pure hardware. You can use it on competitors' hardware, or you can put it into the cloud
Yep.
and actually manage storage across all those places in the same way you would if you were just using a strictly pure storage solution only.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think about storage and how resource intensive, both from kind of getting the physical storage into your data center and then having really specialized resources to manage it, your storage administrators.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kubernetes basically provides a set of APIs that, if you're running on-prem, you still got to get the box there, right? The array there. But if you're running in Amazon, right, Amazon takes care of those logistics. All you need is an API to access it. And Kubernetes provides the access method as well as the automation so that those individual, I use the example of a data scientist, right? A data scientist who's
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out how do we process all this data and get insights really, really quickly during the pandemic doesn't have to put in a ticket in order to provision some infrastructure, then deploy their application. It's, kubectl apply, in my YAML file for my deployment. That's the experience. And that
Right.
speeds up the innovation cycle pretty dramatically. And you're exactly right. Portworx is kind of on the front lines of helping our customers get apps to production more quickly by leveraging the automation that Kubernetes entails. But, and this goes back to your security question, these are still enterprise applications. So performance, availability, data protection, security, like these are things that a developer doesn't want to have to think about, but that the organization has to think about. So we make it dead simple just to put a line in your YAML file that says encryption equals true, or
Mm-hmm.
HA equals 3, and we're going to keep replicas, or what is your backup policy. You make it really simple to do things operationally the correct way, but without drawing away from the speed that the
Right.
developers want.
And then the beauty of like the Kubernetes way is now I can leverage GPUs that maybe I have in my data center that would cost an exorbitant amount, maybe in the public cloud, or one public cloud has better hardware for processing compute than another one, or maybe I know one public cloud is going to charge me less for data transfer. So I've got options now, it sounds like, to quickly move my workloads from either one public cloud to another public cloud, or even to my private cloud, so I can leverage specific hardware. And it sounds like Pure can help manage that process all the way along.
Yeah, exactly. And I forgot to mention kind of, Pure as a service. It's, even in your own data center, Pure takes care of that for you, right? In terms of you subscribe to an SLA, and Pure is going to make sure that the hardware is in place in order to meet that SLA. Customers are doing it in their own data center, they're doing it in the cloud. And what Portworx provides is that consistent operational layer to
Mm-hmm.
manage those applications regardless of environment.
Yeah. And I want to bring up one last feature before we wrap. With the new 2.8 release, it sounds like you've got Pure One integration. I was really curious to know more about the meta AI and being able to actually make real-time, like proactive suggestions about the usage on your various clusters. I mean, I think this is great that you're finally fitting into the rest of the Pure product line with many more integrations in this release.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that customers love about Pure, and it's the reason that our NPS is in top 1% of B2B companies, it's because we know that there are problems in our environment before the customer knows, and we can proactively fix them. So that's driven by an engine called Meta within Pure One. And with this release, we're now sending your container and Kubernetes metrics into Pure One, along with all the other metrics that Pure One, from your VMware environment and from your databases that Pure One understands. And over time, that allows us to build new models, right? We are both providers of AI and ML services to our customers, but then we use those same technologies internally to create better experiences. So over time, as we understand container workloads, the way that we already understand VM-based workloads, we'll be able to provide those recommendations to our customers. So this was step one. Now it's up to our data scientists to figure out how we can actually kind of, address some of those concerns for customers over time.
That's excellent. I want to thank you for being with me today, Michael, and talking about some of the new awesome stuff coming up in Portworx. There's a ton more features. I wish I could have gotten to more of them throughout the talk, but I assume if folks want to find out more, there'll be some links associated here that they can go dive deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage people to check out portworx.com. And there you could head over to our blog. We've got a big write-up on all of the cool stuff that's happened as part of our releases around Accelerate. And you can actually try Portworx for free. We have a freemium version called Portworx Essentials. You can try our enterprise version for a free 30-day trial, our data protection solution for Kubernetes PX backup. Everything's right there on the website. You don't have to talk to a salesperson. You can just download it, try it, and if it looks good to you, then let's have a conversation about how we fit into your strategy.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. I love the fact I can just get an essentials version of Portworx and get kicked off right away without having to talk to anybody. So thank you so much for being here today, and we will hopefully talk to you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks a lot.